I am a wargamer. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to do something a little bit different. You see, I've been challenged to the whole I am a wargamer video by a number of people such as John the Crazed, Major Kill and Age of Nagash. And well, it's about time that I actually sorted this video out. So there's 3 questions regarding this, and for the purpose of this video, I'm going to answer all 3 with some footage of Total War Warhammer, but also have some pictures of my own tabletop Warhammer Fantasy minis. You're getting a bit of Storytime Nathan today, so this should be quite a bit of fun. I'm not going to edit this video too much. There might be a bit of umming and ahhing, but I want to keep this video quite sincere and relaxed. So the first question is, what got you into the hobby? Well, growing up, I wasn't really a healthy or sporty kid. I was getting sick quite often, so I didn't really leave the house much. I tried to be sporty and all that, but I couldn't really get into it. It was just a lot of time spent at home, and a lot of time playing video games in all honesty. I was around 4 or 5 years old, and well, you know, parents do get kind of worried about their children. They want them to be active in some way, shape or form. If not in a physical sense, maybe something a bit more different in an effort to keep them occupied. And well, that's where Warhammer came in. You see, my mother ended up going down to a local hobby shop with me. We were actually going downtown, and well, you know, the local hobby shop had this massive cutout of a Space Marine. I'll never forget it. It was huge. Well, to me it was, but then again, I was a small child, and it was an Ultramarine. Obviously, as a kid, you see something so big, you get kinda interested. What is this? And we ended up going in. Naturally, with Gibraltar being such a small place, the hobby itself was quite small. The shop owner, being a independent retailer, we've never had a GW in Gibraltar, wanted to sell as much as possible. It makes sense, you want to keep your business alive. So the shop owner basically was talking me in on how cool the Space Marines were and how they are superheroes in their own sense and stuff like that, which made me beg my mother to buy it for me because I just wanted to play these so-called superhero Space Marines. It was then where we were told that we had to build and paint them ourselves, and my mother thought this was a good idea because obviously this is something to stimulate a small child who isn't really going out a lot. By that I mean no activities and stuff like that. I couldn't really get into clubs and so on. Eventually I did, but it was just a very weird time early on. Plus I was shy as hell, I wouldn't look at people in the eyes. It was eventually discovered that I have really bad anxiety, but there we go. So there we were. We ended up buying a Space Marine box which came with some paints, some brushes, the basic tools and so on. Obviously I was still very young, so my mother had to help me out with painting them. And no, you're not going to see those Space Marines. They'll never see the light of day ever. Believe me, they look horrifying and yeah. But I have kept them for sentimental reasons, because I do look at them and go, oh, you know, but I also see a fond memory, something that started me off on a lifelong hobby. So yeah, the Great Book of Grudges, the Warhammer Fantasy channel dedicated to anything fantasy related, actually started with Warhammer 40k. I eventually learned how to paint and build up the models myself. My mother's still helping me, of course, until I got to a certain age where I wasn't really needing her to help me, despite the fact that she was always willing to help, and I trudged along. I eventually ditched the Ultramarines, and I moved on to the Dark Angels, I believe. But 40k was never really much my forte. I ended up reading a lot of books, and I do actually attribute reading the books to being so helpful in my education later, as I was actually fairly interested in learning stories and so on, but the whole sci-fi aesthetic and so on, it really wasn't my type of thing, I'll be very honest. It still really isn't. I enjoy it now more than I did back then, but I, just as a personal preference, was always drawn to games with swords, magic, and so on, just more of a fantasy element. Unfortunately, our local retailer didn't bring any Warhammer Fantasy minis. I asked him a few years down the line why he didn't, but it turns out that they just didn't sell, which okay, makes sense, you don't want to bring in a product that doesn't sell. But by then, I had already long discovered Warhammer Fantasy Battles. You see, Gibraltar borders Spain, and we used to go into Spain a lot during the weekends, the summer holidays, and so on. Eventually, we found a hobby shop, and I can't remember how old I was. I think I was around 8 or so, yeah, possibly around that, where we ended up finding this shop, and they were selling Warhammer products much cheaper than we were normally used to. And there I started noticing some boxes. There were boxes of giants, monsters, chaos warriors with swords and shields and axes. I was amazed to see a fantasy element. This was Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and I just wanted to jump right in. It's almost like I completely forgot about 40k at that point. I saw elves, humans, dark elves, dwarfs, all fighting these orcs and demons and stuff like that. I was just so overwhelmed that I needed to just get my hands on a bunch of boxes. The shop owner there was incredibly nice, and to be honest, were it not for him pushing a little bit more, I don't think my parents would have budged. But I ended up getting a few Empire warriors, swordsmen and stuff like that. It was just a way to get started. Yeah, Empire, I know, so generic, but then again, I like the look and feel of them, and I wanted to paint them in my own color scheme, as I just wanted to make my own story up at that point. It was really fun, I got really into it, and I carried on playing for years to come, naturally. It wasn't until I was around 12 years old where I had not discovered the Skaven properly. You see, at that point, the Skaven were doing rather well, and I was really enjoying the look and feel of them, and I needed something different. I had already been playing different factions here and there. I have some wood elves, some dark elves and stuff like that, but it wasn't what I needed. I wanted something which was terrifying, but also fun to play, and for me, that was the Skaven, an unending horde of rats which were just so destructive they were killing themselves. Since then, I've been collecting Skaven non-stop. I've actually got an army of around 130,000 points by 8th edition standards. Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer in general have always been a big part of my life, which is why I dedicate so much time to such a hobby. It's just something I absolutely love. Now, the second question is, what got you into YouTube? Well, this is a bit darker of a story. You see, I was working in a dead-end job, which was pretty much destroying me mentally. It got to the point where I actually had to take them to court. For reference, I was in a pretty high position in this dead-end job, and I was on a holiday. It was just a small little thing, but I was still in my city. They signed a lot of documents under my name. Obviously, that's fraud, and they didn't seem to see a problem with that. I only found out because another company that we deal with called me directly on my personal phone and asked why my signature was so different. Cue me being obviously enraged and raising up the issue with them, which led to a massive argument, and apparently they'd been doing that for quite some time whenever I took leave. Now, bear in mind, I wasn't off that often, but it was just every single time. They could have easily called me in. I'm not a person to travel much unless I'm going to a festival or something. They didn't want to fess up, which led to me being terminated as the argument continued, and I obviously took them to court. Who knows what else they were signing under my name. Now, anyone who's taken a former employer to court might know that, well, these things take a while, and it can take a bit of a toll on your mental health. It was horrible. I was really feeling a lot of self-hatred towards myself, thinking, well, if I could have shut up about it and I just would have kept quiet, I would have still had my job, I wouldn't be doing this court thing, everything would be back to normal, and, you know. It was at that point where I figured it might be a good idea to keep myself busy. I'd already quit Warhammer because obviously the end times kind of killed off my taste for Warhammer, but at that point I figured, you know, I've got a lot of free time, I might as well. So I tried to paint up some 40k models, and I just wasn't feeling it. There was no more Warhammer Fantasy, it was Age of Sigmar at this point, so I was not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But I started getting into the video gaming aspect of Warhammer, you know, Total War Warhammer and stuff like that, which completely blew me away. And I figured, people are doing these YouTube channels for fun. I never really flirted with the idea, but since I had a lot of free time on my hands, maybe this could keep me entertained whilst the court proceedings carried on. It was already 6 months into it, I'd not found employment just yet, and this was seeming to be endless. So I jumped right in, and I just wanted to have some fun. There were no ulterior motives, no dreams or aspirations of doing this full time or getting monetized. I just wanted something to keep me mentally sane. The channel grew at a decent pace for a Warhammer Fantasy dedicated channel. I mean, let's face it, you know, Warhammer Fantasy was dead, so I wasn't really expecting to get a lot of subs. At one point I was getting 100 subs a month, and that was it. It took me, what, 3 years to get to 2,000 subs? But I was happy. It was something fun for me. I was involving my friends in battle reports and doing this, that, and the other. It was nothing just massive, but for me, it brought a hobby back into my life, and I will always cherish those memories. Eventually, the court case finally ended, and it was ruled overwhelmingly in my favor. As far as I'm aware, that business also ended up getting sued by multiple people straight after me, so that was fantastic because they got their justice handed to them. They were nasty people, and I saw them do nasty, nasty things, so being able to beat them was just great. I was able to just relax. I had won a bit of cash, which made me at least have some cash until I found some employment, and funny enough, I ended up finding employment a few weeks after, which ended up with me having the spare cash and treating myself to some Warhammer Fantasy boxes, because at that point, Total War Warhammer had scratched the itch for Warhammer Fantasy so much that I just wanted to paint the minis again. I started going on eBay and buying whatever I could, and here we are, back to where I was originally. Now the channel since then has grown. This year has been massive. I mean, we jumped from what, 2,000 subs to close to 20,000 at the time of recording this video? Originally, I thought after the court case that I was going to end the channel because, well, I didn't need a distraction anymore. But I realized that it was so cool to be able to do this and start chatting to Warhammer Fantasy fans across the globe and so on, that I'll just do it for fun. It's something that I could do. A few videos here and there every week would be nice, even every month or so. There was no release schedule, there was nothing. But since then, the channel has grown, and I've met so many wonderful people. Games Workshop have decided to announce a game called Warhammer The Old World, which will be based on the Warhammer Fantasy setting. We still don't know much about that yet, and I've become an official content partner with Creative Assembly. I feel like I'm in a much better place because of the channel, and because of the friendships formed because of the channel too. So I'm just in a really good place right now, despite the obvious stress at the moment, but then again that's more to do with this year's weird happenings than anything else. And the last question is, where do you see your channel in the next 5 years? Well, I don't know. It could be that I could be full-time on YouTube. I mean, I've got no aspirations from it, believe me, but it could be nice, and it has been a thought that I've flirted with every now and then. If I get enough views, could I do this full-time? If I get enough subscribers, could I get a play button and stuff like that? It's just something that every YouTuber thinks, I think, at some point or another. I mean, should it ever happen, that would be amazing. I could produce much more content than I already do, and actually get some decent sleep for once. But until then, you never know. But I do have a plan for the next 5 years. I want to reintroduce Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports. I want to do Warhammer 40k Battle Reports. Maybe even some Age of Sigmar Battle Reports. Bring back lore videos. Cover loads of Warhammer based games. And even some other games that are not Warhammer related. I've covered some already, and it's just nice to be able to do so. I'll be very honest with you, I don't know where I'll be in the next 5 years in terms of YouTube. I don't even know what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow. All I know is I'm having fun. I'm enjoying talking to you guys. I'm enjoying producing content for you guys. Just memeing on stream, or just thinking up of what speculation for Total War Warhammer, or even just what I'm planning for the battle reports. There's a lot of stuff that's being planned behind the scenes, which I just can't wait to share with you guys. Again, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, but as long as I'm having fun, and you guys are having fun, isn't that the most important thing? Let's just see where we can go, and whatever happens, happens. But I have to thank you guys for everything. Not only for the recent channel growth, but all of you who've been there with me since the beginning. There have been a lot of dark periods in my life since the beginning of this channel, and I tell you what, being able to talk to you guys has helped a lot, especially this year. Working as an essential worker, it's done a number of my mental health, not being able to see people, not being able to just socialize in like real time because, we can't meet up physically in some cases, and my work has been putting me into dangerous areas where I could end up getting the virus. Even though the fact is my job restriction is nothing to do with healthcare, I've been taken into that fold. But I will happily do what I need to do in an effort to protect those I love. And, when I've felt a bit dark and so on, I've gone onto the Discord and I've chatted with you guys until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. None of you guys know why I've been up so late in some cases. Sometimes I just completely don't even answer that question. I pretend like I don't see it. But, you know, it's been a great comfort. So, again, 5 years, who knows? But I look forward to seeing what happens, and I feel in a much better place knowing that you guys are on this journey with me too. The Great Book of Grudges would be nothing without you guys, and I owe you all so much. It's a bit of a sentimental video, isn't it? But, you know, I can't really thank you all enough. So with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and I shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day. Oh, and I almost forgot, I actually have to challenge someone after this. So I'm going to challenge Commander CheapSkate. This is a Warhammer channel which does a bit of everything. He's got around 900 subs, and I tell you what, the channel deserves a lot more. It's a channel that I really admire. You can find the channel link on the description below. It'd be really cool if you could go into his new video and just say the Great Book of Grudges sent you. It would be really nice. The channel really, really deserves it, and I would appreciate it. And if you're listening, mate, you've got some questions to answer. But now, once again, I shall see you all very, very soon. Have a good day.